So I'm just curious, just by a raise of hands, how many in this room are using either KVM, Xen, or VMware? How many of them are VMware? Xen? KVM? Excellent. I like you guys. So now the whole point I want to drive here is there is a real open source alternative out there to VMware and a better alternative than Xen. Much better. I think it's 1,000,000 times better than Xen. It scales better than Xen, and it's integrated into the Linux kernel, unlike Xen. DOM0 is integrated into the Linux kernel, but not the hypervisor. So don't let Citrix cloud your eyes. So currently, this is what I've been seeing in my line of work. Almost 70% of my customers are looking to do basically a dual hypervisor strategy. They want to get off. VMware is getting way too expensive, so they need something else. It's impossible for them to stay with VMware forever. And so, the cost difference between Rev and VMware, Rev for a 4-socket system is only $3,000 for a 1-year subscription. VMware, it's almost $100,000. So, and you get almost all the features in Rev 3 and the current release of OVirt that you get in VMware Enterprise. Not VMware Enterprise Plus, but that's coming. So, I'm just going to skip over that one. So, the OVirt project is basically contributed. The main contributors are Red Hat, IBM, SUSE, Canonical, Cisco, Intel, and NetApp. And OVirt is basically what Fedora is to Rail, to Red Hat Enterprise Linux. OVirt is to Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization. And Red Hat does their stuff, but we all know it's basically all the same. So, Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization overview. Currently, the OVirt project, they're using the base for the hypervisor is Fedora 16. You can use other Linux distributions, but the main one they're pushing for right now is Fedora 16. Red Hat it's 6.2. When Red Hat 6.3 comes out, it'll be 6.3. So the main features of Red Hat virtualization, SE Linux, everyone turns it off. Don't turn it off now. SVirt protects your guests. Excellent network. Built-in multipath that's built into the Linux kernel. And then the management suite. This is the same for OVirt and for Rev. It's built on Fedora in the case of OVirt, JBoss, and Postgres. It's all web-based, Ajax, HTML5, Power User Portal, server and desktop guest support. You have to have a directory server. You have to have an LDAP server in order to have multiple users for the administration and the Power User Portal. Has a great reporting engine. It just uses Jasper reports. And then tons of third-party support. So right now, I'm going to skip over this. This only applies to Rev. This is the current performance benchmarks against VMware. VMware is right here in the gray. Red Hat and the OVirt project, or just KVM. This is Red Hat 6.1. It's the only one that will support 8 sockets, and it's the fastest in 4 and the fastest in 2. And it's faster than VMware, performs better than VMware, and skip that one. And it performs faster than Xen. So I'm just going to give a quick history of how this came to be, how the OVirt project came to be. Red Hat acquired a company called Kubernetes. They were an Israeli company. That's where the KVM hypervisor came from. And first they started with Rev 2 and 2.2, but the management console ran on Windows with SQL Server. It was a pain. No one liked it. This is what it looked like. You had Windows 2008, a .NET backend. Only talked to Windows. It sucked. And then you had your Rev Hypervisor, and everything else was Linux. Then the one thing that they set out to do when they created the oVirt project is it had to be an open source community. And everything had to be on open standards. No more of this .NET crap. So this is what it looks like now. You have it's all Java. Right now, there are 2 clients. There's still Windows.NET, and then they have the HTML and a command line interface. It's very powerful to manage your virtualization environment. So the hypervisor scales. I guess scalability is huge. It's actually the limitation of the Linux kernel that these are would be the supported and the recommended by Red Hat and the oVirt project don't go over 64. They haven't tested over 64 virtual CPUs, and they haven't tested over 512 gigabytes of memory. But the real limitation is the Linux kernel. The Linux kernel is if you wanted to, you could have a guest with 4,000 virtual CPUs and 2 terabytes of memory, and it should work. The limitation is really the Linux kernel if your guest is a Linux guest. Do you have any questions so far? So, I've already gone over this. I wanted to do a demo today, so most of this is going to end up being Q&A. I cannot connect to my VPN to show everything off. I wish I would have tested that sooner. So Rev H, or the oVirt node, is basically just enough Linux to run to run your virtual machines. It's basically a live image. You create a live image, and then it zaps it on that live image onto your flash memory or your hard disk, and it's read-only at that point. You can only only thing you can do is assign it a static IP address, put in its host name, and connect it to the oVirt manager or the Rev Em or Rev Em. Once you do that, everything's managed from Rev Em, the networking, everything. So, and you can install it using Pixie Boot. I would use Spacewalk to do it, or when Katello becomes more stable, I'd use Katello. Has anyone heard of Katello yet? Great. All right, so this is the roadmap. Right now, they're going to be putting it on JBoss. The community will be putting it on JBoss 7. Red Hat will be putting it on JBoss Enterprise Application Platform 6. It will be on OpenJDK. It will not be using Oracle's JDK anymore. Even the next version of oVirt will be using Fedora 17. Red Hat will be doing Red Hat 6.3. Be using Jasper 4, and you'll be able to assign quotas. Right now, you can't. Like in the Power User portal, you want to have users looking at. You want to have users go ahead and, like your developers, spool up a virtual machine. And right now, they can spool up as many virtual machines as they want and use up all your resources. This, you can assign quotas based on each user. That's a big feature. So there's already a Linux command line, but there's going to be more added. We're going to add a PowerShell command line. Who cares? Python SDK, and there's a Java hooks REST API. So, and one thing that is missing in storage, that's not in 3.1 but is coming, is hot plug disk. That's not in 3.0 yet, oVirt 3 or Rev. Direct LUN, your guest cannot talk directly to a LUN yet. They will in 3.1. And that's coming in July. And some of this, direct LUN is actually ready. You just have to do it from the command line. You can't do it from the OvertCloud manager. Shared disk. So if you can have multiple VMs talk to the same virtual disk. Can't do that right now. Can do that in VMware, but you will be able to in 3.1. Multiple storage domains is one thing I should talk about. And currently in Rev and oVirt, for each data, you create a data center for each of your clusters. And each data center can only have one storage type. So if you pick NFS, that data center is restricted to NFS. If you pick iSCSI, it's restricted to iSCSI. Now that's being changed. Each data center can have fiber, NFS, iSCSI. But your clusters will be restrained based on what you choose. Live snapshots is coming. What else? Storage live migration, that's a big one. And it's free now. It's going to be free with oVirt. You have to pay for that with Zen. And it's bad. It doesn't work very well. Networking. There's not a lot coming in networking. Does anyone have a virtual desktop infrastructure or care? So Red Hat, part of their acquisition with Kubernetes, got a protocol called Spice. It's a very, very, very fast protocol. It's better than VMware View. I will say covering up Red Hat, it's better. It's not. Citrix is better right now with their ICA Zen desktop. It is better. Their WAN performance cannot be beat, and I don't know when that's going to be better than Citrix. Citrix is probably a year or two ahead of Spice in terms of WAN performance. But in terms of graphics on your local LAN, Spice blows ICA out of the water. There's a Spice client right now for Windows and Linux. For Windows, it's a ActiveX plugin. For Linux, there's an actual client and a plugin for Firefox. That plugin is going to be ported for Mac and Windows. So now, how would you, at this point, talked about Rev. Now, I want to talk about managing all this infrastructure. Now, right now, this is the answer. Red Hat Network Satellite. How do you manage all those Linux guests, all the packages, etc.? Right now, right now, I think Spacewalk or Satellite is the best management solution out there. In terms of configuration, Puppet is better, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. But if you're doing an RPM-based distribution, even Debian Spacewalk, not Satellite, will handle Debian. I highly recommend you take a look at it. It's all open source now. It doesn't use Oracle. You can no longer use the Oracle XC database. You can use Postgres instead. I recommend you take a look at it. But it's going away. And this is one of my new favorite projects. It's Katello. It's going to be part of Red Hat's CloudForms when it comes out this year. But take a look at this project. It's a fantastic project. It has a lot of support. KatelloProject.org. It uses projects called one called Pulp and another one called Candlepin for package management. You can push packages, and it's not just over Yum. You can use Gem. You can use Maven. So if you're do Ruby, there you go. It will handle your Ruby gems, and you can manage all your subscriptions for your entire infrastructure from one. I don't want to say it because I hate this term, single pane of glass. So configuration management is a new project backed by Red Hat called Foreman. Foreman also handles system provisioning. It uses Kickstarter in the case of Solaris, because it will do Solaris if you care to do it. Jumpstart. But Foreman uses Puppet for configuration management. That's my favorite thing to use for all my configuration, for all my systems. I push it on all my customers. If you don't use Puppet to manage your configuration files, do it. It's free. So the next one, this one I really wanted to do a demo on. The Aeolus project it's going to be part of Red Hat's CloudForms if you want to support a product. It's basically a central management system, and the core technology is a project. It's under the Apache Foundation called Delta Cloud. Manages, so right now I know the two working ones are Amazon EC2 and Rackspace. And it will support, if you want to use OpenStack instead of CloudForms, or you want to use this if you're having all these systems here, you're using OpenStack for your private cloud, you can use CloudForms to manage it. And it will manage all your images. You can have one central store to manage all your images. If you have an image, so your images for EC2 and Rev and VMware will work. They'll all work wherever you deploy them. You just point and click, and it'll push your image to either Amazon or Rev, vSphere, or OpenStack. And then, actually, I just talked about that. So I'm going to open it up to Q&A. Yes?
You brushed on the virtual desktop infrastructure.
Yeah.
With the local, computers are so powerful. I understand the emphasis on wanting to switch to data in the application in the cloud for safety and everything.
Yep.
What does the client look like? Is it still a thin client? Or?
So it can be whatever you want it to be. Oh, yes, I will. So basically the question was, what kind of client can Spice use? Is that fair phrasing? Any system. You can if it's a supported thin client, you can use it. If it's a desktop, you can use it. As long as it can run Spice, you can use it. And what Spice does, one thing I didn't get into, is Spice will actually use the local hardware if it's powerful enough. It's smart enough to go, all right, this system is fast. This GPU on this system has a gig of DDR3 memory, and the GPU in the data center doesn't even have 64 megs of memory. It will render all the video, all the graphics locally. It won't bog down your data center. And thin clients are getting powerful enough now that that you can run all your graphics from your thin clients. And Red Hat has very specific thin clients that because no one's supporting the Spice client right now except for Weiss, I think. And you can run it on Windows thin clients as well if you're going to think about thin clients. But if you want to just repurpose an old desktop, throw Fedora on it, throw Red Hat Enterprise Linux on it, and make sure Spice is installed, and it'll run whatever you want. It'll run whatever you have running in your VDI infrastructure in Rev. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you just briefly describe the differences between oVirt and OpenStack?
OpenStack?
Red Hat is kind of...
So OpenStack, I don't know a lot about OpenStack. I have done some research on it, but from what I can tell, it's mostly a competing way of managing KVM at this point. That's what it's looking like. That's what SUSE is going to be using to manage both Zen and KVM. And it's also looking like that's what Canonical is going to do. I think Red Hat is going to be the lone wolf with oVirt. Aside from IBM. IBM is actually pushing it on their main they have an x86 mainframe extension, and that's what they're pushing. They're pushing Rev. They're pushing oVirt. But like the way it handles actually, I would rather compare OpenStack to CloudForms. The reason why is because it's a central place to store your images. Yeah, that's one of the key components of OpenStack, and then it's the management, and that's where and CloudForms is just the ultimate wrapper to manage all of it, but oVirt is just that one piece of the puzzle of a private cloud. But I don't have a better answer for you. I'm sorry. I just oVirt is an answer to match VMware. That's what it is, and that's what they're concentrating on. It's obviously just a plain old virtualization platform to hopefully knock out VMware's market share. But that's the best answer I can give. So
do you have anything to manage, like if you want to do platform as a service or something like that, or is it just strictly to manage your own?
That's where CloudForms will be coming in for a platform as a service. They're going to be there's a project to manage JBoss called RQN. Red Hat calls it John JBoss Operations Network. That's going to be integrated very tightly into CloudForms, specifically the Aeolus project. That's where the platform as a service is going to end up. So if you wanted, Aeolus will be the place, will be the I think, the open source solution for managing infrastructure and managing platform as a service. But OpenShift is based on John, and it has the Aeolus foundations. And that is, but OpenShift is is basically Red Hat's hosted solution of that project. Yeah, that's going to be part of CloudForms.
What is Red Hat's stance on Linux's containers?
Linux containers, they don't support it.
Will they ever?
I don't think so.
What's your stance on Cloud Foundry and Bosch?
I don't have one.
No plans for Red Hat to plug into Bosch?
I don't know. That is a question I will have to take to Red Hat. And if you go ahead and send me an email. That's my Twitter. I don't tweet often, but send me an email and I'll follow up. Mm-hmm. I got lots of contacts at Red Hat. So if you guys have any juicy questions, send them to me. Yeah, I know. They didn't buy Sirius.com fast enough. Very short-sighted group of people when it came to that. All right.
So, you see trends in the industry. What are the chief problems people are bringing to these virtualization servers to solve that you see?
Can you repeat the question?
What are the major trends that you see that people are turning for virtualization services for? What are the problem domains that you address well, or what do you see?
So, basically, what I've been seeing is, lately it's been power. Lots of smaller companies don't care about power. They don't have enough servers. But the more you can fit in a rack and the less power you can use and the less cooling, that's what's driving virtualization for major enterprises. Really, a lot of these enterprises, to be completely honest, are still stuck in the Stone Age of we want a single server for every application, and specifically in the healthcare industry. And I know, but they're swallowing it because power is becoming so expensive where all these data centers are. Like, for example, United Health Group, their biggest data centers are in Minnesota. And to cool them is outrageously expensive. It's hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's where they finally said, all right, we're done spending this much. We're consolidating everything. Like the Exchange, I know this because I saw it. Exchange I helped with this. Exchange is running on two servers, and it's running on like 10 across 10 VMs, and it has like this huge tons of storage. But it used to be the Exchange cluster was down to the end of that desk, down to the end of there. It was a huge, gross, disgusting thing. I mean, I wouldn't want to manage that. Screw that. Like, put that in with VMware. put it into VMware or in my case, OVirt, save tons of money on servers. That's really what it is. It's money. Big dollar sign. As soon as they see that, oh, I can run all 20 workloads on one server, they go, okay, I want to do that. It's worth every penny. That's why their companies are spending millions of dollars on VMware.
Another question, unrelated probably to the first, but what's the risk management strategy? You know, I mean, everybody worries if the server goes down.
Yeah.
How do they, what's the recommended approach with
Okay.
with the Rev H and so on?
Yeah.
What's the recommended approach to deal with that snapshot, or what do they do?
So the recommended approach specifically for disaster recovery, Red Hat has a 100-page document that you can follow to do disaster recovery, and basically it does the snapshotting, V2V migration, using a project called V2V Migrate. And then there are really right now for Rev and OVirt, it's a third-party solution. Acronis is a name that gets thrown around Red Hat all the time, all day. They sing the praises of Acronis. And basically, Acronis handles the backup and recovery for OVirt or Rev. They don't support OVirt, but it will work. Acronis is remarkably cheap for a closed proprietary platform. But there are open source solutions for it, but they're very hackish. For a small business, I do it where I had a limited budget. For the customers I tend to deal with, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. They'd laugh me out the room. So. I can send, if you guys want that wonderful 100-page disaster recovery document, I can send it to you. It's a bear. Any more?
So, I mean, if no one else has a question, I'll ask one more.
All right.
So, right now, I mean, I strictly use VMware. I admit it. I feel a little guilty, but I admit it. Now, suppose I want to do an experiment, spin up as quickly as possible on Rev H or OVirt. What's the shortest sequence of steps where I get it going? I mean, what do I have to do to get started?
So you can now Rev Em either has to run on a VM in VMware or on dedicated hardware. You can't run it on inside your or on a set or on a totally. It has to be. It cannot run inside your virtualization.
So that goes on a core server.
Goes on a core server, and then you have your Rev H or OVirt nodes, and then. Oh, and by the way, one thing I missed. You can use Rail, the full Rail server, or a full base Fedora install as your hypervisor, if you want to. You don't have to use the small 100 meg one. The reason, and I'll answer your question. It's a bit of a diversion. One of the things I set up for a client that did a VDI infrastructure. Basically, I set up what I architected. I didn't personally set this up; someone else did. But basically, what I architected was they had Rev Em, and then instead of having Rev H, they used Rail 6.2, and with the OVirt node plugin, so it could talk to the manager. And every night, it was just every night all the desktops would shut down, except for on one server, because they only needed to be running on probably one. And then those servers that were running, like it was like 10 servers, would be retasked at like 6 p.m. to do another task. They were retasked to run some healthcare workload at night. It was probably to process healthcare claims. And basically, that freed up, that allowed them to utilize those servers, not just for VDI, but for servers, as a real server to run a real workload. And then to continue, if you want to do like a migration, like if you wanted to do a V2V migration from VMware to Rev, there's a project, there's a tool it's a command line tool called V2V migrate, and that will migrate your VMware workloads to Rev or OVirt. And that would be a quick way to get you started. You just need some storage. You can use your local disk. You can use local disk on the hypervisor if you want. I recommend using NFS or iSCSI or fiber. Yeah, and then you need to make sure you have at least one NFS store for your ISOs and stuff. You can do that on the Rev Em if you want to. What else? Red Hat right now, I'll give you quick system requirements. Red Hat's current recommended system requirements, at least 16 gigs of memory on your hypervisor. So you can do less, you just won't be able to do anything. So I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for me, it's okay.
Okay.
I promised I wouldn't ask any more questions.
That's fine.
I'll pull it.
Keep asking.
All right, so real quick, I mean, where I work,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just joined this company, but they are nearly completely a non-open source
Mm-hmm.
shop in terms of, they're a Microsoft shop.
Okay. Yep. Okay. I know the shop. They're everywhere.
So, I mean, how easy is it for people with maybe a really good Microsoft background, but where Linux is concerned, they haven't used it very much?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of stuff do you have to help people like that spin up if they wanted to switch?
Let's start this out.
To get started so that they can get the training they need to. Mm-hmm. Is it a big learning curve for people like that?
So, question is, how easy is it for non-Linux users to spool this up? The install, I'm going to tell you right now, is all on the command line. The installation for Rev is all on the command line. The management after that, though, the management is no different than VMware or Citrix. It's all through GUI. That's what those Windows admins love, isn't it? Give me a GUI. Don't give me a shell. Give me a GUI. And well, Red Hat has a partnership with Microsoft. It's not like Novell's partnership with Microsoft where they basically sold their souls, but Red Hat will support Windows. They will support Windows. They'll even, if you are nice to the support technician, they'll support Windows 2000. So, and the drivers work for Windows 2000. They all use para-virtualized drivers. And they work fantastically. I tested it. I saw Windows 2000 server working. I was shocked that it was even around. But hell, I'm still finding NetWare in shops, so go figure. But yeah, Red Hat will support Windows workloads. And they have a migration path for if you're running, say you're running IBM Power, they have a migration path onto Rev to get you off of AIX onto Red Hat. And they have a fantastic migration path to get everyone off of Solaris. If you're running Solaris, I'd get off of it soon. Give me a call.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that individual clusters could not use different types of storage.
So the way it currently works in Rev 3.0, you have a data center. This is why I really wanted to do a demo. You have a data center, and you assign storage to that data center. You can only select one type of storage. You can create as many data centers as you want with as many clusters as you want. It's like up to 500 data centers supported inside Rev Em. Basically, it's a limitation. It ends up being a limitation of disk storage, really. You could probably do 1,000. But so you could do roughly 400 or 500 data centers and 1,000 clusters per data center. But when you do when you just have one, if you're going to do a data center, let me see if I can do this. So you have a data center, then you assign its storage, and then you have your cluster and your guests inside. Well, you have your hosts inside. These are hosts. And then you have your guests. Whatever. Anyway, your storage that your hosts talk to in here would, like if you picked NFS for storage, you're stuck with NFS in that data center. But you can create another data center with iSCSI, and then have another cluster. It will talk to that iSCSI. Rev 3.1, you don't have to do that anymore. Rev 3.1 or OVirt 3.1, this should be done in July. You can not just have NFS here, you can have iSCSI fiber. And it will be able, and all these hosts will be able to talk to that. And then they'll be able to migrate their VMs across that storage with Storage Live Migration. That's in 3.1, not in 3.0. What you download from oVirt.org, or if you go and do the trial of Rev on redhat.com, you won't be able to do this. It's going to be July, August. Yeah, it's coming really fast. As long as it gets here before Hyper-V 3.0. That's what I'm competing against right now, out in the market. Customers are waiting that are on Hyper-V 2.2. That was my target, and my target audience right now. And they're all one of my customers happens to be Franklin Covey, and they're on Hyper-V 2.2 and on VMware 5. and they're looking at moving to a single solution. So I said, here, let me come and tell you about Red Hat. And they're holding off for Hyper-V 3. But I have to say, Hyper-V 3 will be pretty cool in terms of a virtualization solution. I won't use it because I haven't used Windows in almost 15 years. So.
I'm a VMware person. I've been spoiled. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. VMware 5 is fantastic, but it costs you. It's a huge cost. I mean, I think I have a. I don't like using this because this is a. Didn't want anything to be selly, so I pulled out all the numbers. But I don't have the slide in this deck. But if you tell your company, we should seriously look at Rev, you will save your company probably huge amounts. Yeah. Yeah. And then the other one was storage live migration. And then another one that I keep getting asked is storage load balancing. No one has.
It's brand new,
so and that will be in Rev 3.1 as well. Yep. All right. Cool. Thanks, guys.